Good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to Under One Sky, the regional session covering time zones across Europe, Middle East, Africa, and India. Thank you to everyone who has taken the time to join us wherever you may be. So as you may know, this is part 2 of the IDA's Global Conference, following our colleagues who began early this morning in East and Southeast Asia, Australia, and New Zealand. Just by way of introducing myself, my name is Georgia Macmillan, and I will be your host for this regional session. I'm joining you from Mayo Dark Sky Park in Ireland, where I'm a researcher and member of Dark Sky Ireland chapter, a growing network across the island of Ireland. So our work, as well as grassroots, our chapter connects with like-minded advocates across the globe, such as our nearest neighbours in Wales, England, and Scotland, who, by the way, are making fantastic progress in raising awareness of dark skies in the UK. And a big shout out to them for that. So this morning, we have a fantastic program of speakers for you. It will cover 3 slots over the next hour, roughly 20 minutes per speaker session. And this will be followed by a questions and answers session with all of the speakers collectively. So before I introduce the speakers, may I kindly draw your attention to some matters of housekeeping. Firstly, we have a live transcript you may have noticed, which is can be enabled at the bottom of your screen for all of the speaker sessions. Also, just to point out that this session is being recorded and broadcast, and that of course means that you can catch up on any of the sessions that you may have missed during the program. Also, please notice the chat box at the bottom of your screen, and if we can ask that you just use that to communicate with each other. Of course, we'd love to hear from you. We want to know exactly where you're joining us from and to welcome you. But just if you don't want to get alerts to chat, you might like to leave the chat window open to avoid any notifications as the speakers are on. May we also ask you to use the questions and answers box only for your questions. Don't put them into the chat box. We have an upvote function to allow us to monitor the most popular questions for our speakers. So that's what we're using at the end of the sessions. And also just to ask you kindly to please observe our code of conduct throughout this conference. You will find it in your attendee package. We're a welcoming, friendly organisation, and we just ask that due respect is paid to all of the participants. I just need to point out that any breach of our code of conduct will result in removal from the conference. So before moving on and with the introductions for the speakers, may I just take this opportunity to thank the IDA staff and the organising committee who have worked incredibly hard to put this international event together across time zones, and they are up all sorts of hours. So thank you to them, big shout out for them. Okay, well, I think that is all of my introductions, and we are going to move on now to the speakers for this morning's session. So our first speaker, his name is Rayan Khan. He was born and raised in the City of Lights in Karachi, Pakistan. Rayan completed his master's degree in space science, specializing in astrophysics from the Institute of Space Science and Technology in the University of Karachi. Rayan is the International Astronomical Union's Dark Sky Ambassador from Pakistan, the National Node of an International Day of Light, National Astronomy Education Coordinator from Pakistan, and the Young Persons Representative of the Royal Aeronautical Society in Pakistan Division. We have Rayan live online to answer the questions at the end of the speaker sessions, but just so that you know, we will begin this session with his recorded talk just for technical reasons. So his talk is entitled The Unconventional Approach for Dark Sky Advocacy, and it's about using this approach to collaboration, knowledge exchange upon the importance of dark skies, using the focal goals of art, entertainment, fashion to inspire the future next generations. So on that note, may I just welcome Rayan, and thank you again for joining us.
Hello everyone, and welcome to our today's session. I'm going to talk about my unconventional approach for dark sky advocacy. My name is Rayan Khan. I'm International Dark Sky Association advocate, founder of Cosmic Tribe, International Astronomical Union Dark Skies Ambassador, and I'm also National Astronomy Education Coordinator, National Node of International Day of Light, and Young Persons Committee Head of Royal Aeronautical Society Pakistan Division. So when I talk about my advocacy methodology that I use in Pakistan, it was different from the methods normally people use. For dark sky advocacy, people approach decision makers, policy makers, and talk to them directly or privately. When we talk about what are the four advocacy skills that are very important for an advocate, is actually communication, collaboration, presentation, and also maintaining professional relationship. All these are very important tools for an advocate to learn. When I talk about my thing, I was born in the city of lights. I was born and raised here, and this city is the southern part of the Pakistan. It's one of the biggest city. It's a financial hub, industrial hub. It's a home for estimated 20 million people, and it's a city that never sleeps. And when we talk about the population growth rate of Karachi, it's actually growing by 5% every year. And people actually don't know what light pollution is in Pakistan in general. When I started talking about this issue, it was very tough. Knowing your audience is very helpful to figure out what content and message people actually can understand and care about. What light pollution, is. People call this city as a beautiful city of lights, and they really don't care about light pollution because they are unaware of it. So, as per my survey, so most of the people were unaware of this issue of light pollution in Karachi. So I met some decision makers, policy makers, and started talking about this issue back in 2019. When I started working on this, I faced a lot of challenges. People start thinking about that I'm either talking about dark side or dark web, or some people think it's a conspiracy theory. And I realized that I'm actually in a wrong place. So I had to make a better decision for my advocacy. For when we talk about the conventional approach, people normally write a letter to an editor, policymaker, create some public events and awareness campaigns. And I choose something different. I chose fashion, art, and entertainment, which was very unusual and very practical somehow. So back in 2019, when I started working on this issue of light pollution in Karachi, we actually got a chance to participate in one challenge where we have to present an idea. And I started talking about the issue of light pollution, wearing this costume. And with me, she's a visual artist. She's a costume designer, Aisha. We participated in this challenge and shared the best ideas that can implement in Pakistan. We received an award during this challenge. We received second prize award. And I was wearing this costume for a cause, to protect the night sky, And this was very helpful to reach out to the wider audience. As you can see, there are more than 500 people sitting in an auditorium right now. So it was held in Karachi, Pakistan, at Marriott Hotel in 2019. So initially, I decided to make a comic character because as I'm Dark Skies ambassador, I created a comic character for myself. But I realized people don't see this comic cartoons or these cartoons in Pakistan. So for that, maybe it is going to be more educational. That's it. Why not to make it more entertaining? So during this competition, a lot of people were laughing at me initially, but when they listened to me and realized what I'm talking about is actually to protect the dark skies of Pakistan. We still have our darkness in Pakistan. There are a lot of dark sky places in Pakistan that we can protect. or astrotourism perspective. That was my message. And also how light is polluting the city of lights, and how we can make this city of light as a smart city of light. This message was delivered through this entertaining, through this what I say, a very impactful way of sharing this message of darkness, helped me a lot to reach out to the wider audience. There was a policymaker as well. There were some influential people who supported me, and this actually got coverage in news media as well. As you can see, when we talk about the educational programs and comparison with the entertainment, no one wants to go to the educational conferences. Most of the people like to, because audience were getting bored at that point. And when we when we saw me on the stage, they started laughing and they were enjoying. So the message that I wanted to give was delivered in a very impactful, because they may remember when I meet or get a chance to meet someone from that audience, they still see that, are you that same person who was wearing the costume in the hall? So everyone has a story to tell or a product to sell. Know your audience before you speak. So this costume is designed from waste products like gadgets, wires, car seat covers, toys, metal waste. All these are used in making of this costume. So when we talk about communication skill in dark sky advocacy, it should be creative, memorable, impactful, entertaining, and it should be very unique. In dark sky advocacy, I choose collaborative approach. This approach requires a group of people to come together to share their knowledge and ideas. The very first step that you need to take is to identify their individual strength. The second step to establish realistic expectation and clarify the goals. In third step, you need to choose your collaborative tools. For example, in my case, I choose costume as well as art as a creative tool. And in the fourth step, you should be very open-minded and encourage new ideas. So why this unconventional dark sky advocacy is important? When we talk about the awareness of dark sky to reach out to the wider audience, you need to have some emotional connection with the audience. This emotional connection actually plays an important role. For example, in my case, I get connected with my audience through this entertainment, fashion, art, open mic sessions. The information was very less technical, so it is easy to grasp. Connect with the existing knowledge. That is also important. There should be more engagement, more entertainment, rather than just boring presentations. It has more visual element in this, and it is more impactful somehow. So how did I figure out what my audience really want? Through common Google trending, I figured out some keywords. The key searches people normally search on the internet, that is about celebrities, current affairs, sports, TV movies, and internet viral. So let's make dark sky more trendy. When we talk about emotional connections, give them a real example. Mention the daily life example, just like a candlelight dinner, make them more happier, lighter, calm, relax. Whereas rich blue white light make them feel like they're in hospital or in trauma or in trouble. So, as you can see in this picture right now here, why am I unable to sleep is just because of light pollution. Light can improve mood and stabilize our circadian rhythm, helping us get a proper and better sleep at night. So when we talk about collaborative approach, dark sky is actually an interdisciplinary topic, require interdisciplinary approach. As you can see in this picture, light pollution has so many impacts and effects on our daily life, including when we talk about from socio-economic aspect, ecological aspect, or physiological aspect. All things are affected because of light pollution. It has energy losses, it is affecting biodiversity, it is affecting your own health. So why not to collaborate with all these people who work in these domains? So it requires interdisciplinary collaboration with all these people. For example, astronomers, lighting designers, environmentalists, ecologists, physiologists, influencer, fashion designer even, and social activist. There are so many people you can collaborate with. So when we talk about interdisciplinary collaboration and approaches, dark sky storytelling equation is very easy to remember. Effects of light pollution plus visual art or any other thing, for example, with influencer, fashion designer, is equals to a good storytelling. Definitely, we need more dark sky story to understand this issue of light pollution. So when we talk about storytelling of dark sky, there are different equations. I choose to tell my story through a costume. This costume is actually designed for a cause. Costume is integrated with smartphone, which is light-based technology. And my smartphone is actually converting my sound into light, conveying the message of darkness through artificial light. This dystopian character gives people a chance to think about why this person is wearing this costume. Evolving from the light, protecting the dark sky. This message actually hit them really hard that people really don't know. Every day they are connected with artificial light, interacting with this artificial light, with smartphones, with light-based technologies, and they are unaware of light pollution itself. This is how I started working on dark sky advocacy. So a lot of people still make fun of me that look at this dude who is wearing this costume. And I choose to say, who made this artificial lights? You don't need to tell everyone that why you can't see the stars. What is your problem? Because no one is ready to listen. Find out their problem because light pollution is causing problem to your health. That is, it is causing sleep disorder, cancer, obesity, depression, and diabetes. All these are very important pointers that you can highlight that it is not affecting the environment only, it is affecting you as well because you are responsible for this to protect the night sky. So a lot of people actually ask me about why you are so passionate about the dark sky. And I share the message of cosmic perspective, that is cosmic density pyramid. In cosmology, as you can see here, there is a pyramid. All matters and energy in this universe is defined through this pyramid. As you can see, there is only a fraction of light that we can see through stars in this universe. Rest of it is actually dark matter and dark energy. We are still discovering more about this universe, and this actually gives them a vision to understand that with this halo of artificial light, we cannot even see all these stars. So let's share us to the dark sky. Future generation will judge us not by what we say, but what we do. Also follow me on Instagram, on Facebook, or Twitter. These are some links, and you can also contact me on this number. Thank you for joining our today's session.
Thank you very much, Rayan, for a very innovative presentation. So folks, just before we move on to our next speakers, just a reminder that we are taking questions and answers for the later session. And if we can encourage you to pop your questions for Rayan into the Q&A box below, we will discuss them later on. So now to our second set of speakers. I say speakers because we have a double act. We have Abhishek Pawse and Deep Anand from India. Abhishek Pawse is a passionate astrophotographer and a visual astronomer who knows the value of a dark sky. He successfully convinced his local authorities to dim the streetlights in his city to reduce light pollution, and is also helping local government to establish an observatory for public use. Deep Anand is the founder, president of Save Our Stars initiative, working to spread awareness and educate the general public about the problem of light pollution. Deep believes in following ingenious and unconventional methods of outreach and education, being a poet himself and a writer. And he tries to appeal to the emotions of the audience, helping them to realize the importance of the dark skies. So this presentation connects the fields of expertise between Deep and Abhishek, and hereby they explain the journeys, efforts and challenges for dark sky advocacy in India, and how outreach and awareness leads to bigger projects within the government and the establishment of a dark sky community in India. So their presentation is called Sailing Through a Change, Sailing to Change, and we look forward to hearing from you both. Welcome and thank you.
All right, so welcome everyone to our presentation. First of all, I'd like to thank IDA for giving us this opportunity to present our work at this prestigious conference. Now, I'd like to begin by explaining a little about the title, Sailing Through a Change, Sailing to a Change. Actually, I think it's better that at the end of the presentation, I explain about it much more, because it will be much clearer, because I'll tell you as the presentation goes ahead that how changes are going on and how we are sailing through the changes. So the night sky has fascinated humans for a long time. The steady majesty of the night sky with its rhythmic periodicity has had a captivating effect on human lives from the earliest. India has hosted one of the few first civilizations, and like all the civilizations, they observed, recorded, and concluded the inspiration and the knowledge that the dark and starry skies have always had to offer. Darkness is a necessary element of survival, whether metaphorically or literally. We have evolved and learned under a simple and straightforward cycle of bright days and dark nights. The serenity and peace of darkness is required for life to strive. The importance of darkness inhabited the minds of even the first civilizations, and it can be found in all the ancient mythologies and legends. For example, in Hindu mythology, that is a religion based on Indus, that was one of the first civilizations. Let's have a look at goddess Ratri. Ratri translates to night or dark in English, sorry. Now, for almost every entity, a specific shape or description exists in the Hindu culture. But Ratri, a goddess that is mentioned in all of the holy books, in all of the Vedas, along with all the primordial gods of the Hindu mythology, Ratri is known to have no specific shape or description. Why? The Rig Veda claims that it's because Ratri is everywhere. It's the night that has existed before the light, and it will never cease to exist, and it will never leave. All the tales about the night skies and stars only hint to one and only one thing, that darkness is necessary for us to sustain. It's necessary for the stars to shine. Moving on to saving this darkness, or as we call it, the Dark Sky Advocacy. Just like any other conservation movement, efforts can be made in distinct fields. The major ones being outreach and education, drafting lighting ordinances, establishing dark sky places, and many more too. Now, I'd like to tell you all the reason why we are pushing the idea of change and rolling out the solutions for light pollution in India at a forced pace. It's because the country is in its prime of developing right now. Actually, not just for India, but this applies for all developing countries right now. If we are somehow able to incorporate the night sky friendly changes in the lighting patterns now, when the changes are already going on, we won't have to turn back to change the light all over again. once we have achieved the mark of being developed, we'll be eradicating the problem as well as developing towards a better future simultaneously. But the path is evidently not very easy. Since I already mentioned that the country lies in a state of developing, there exists a lot more visible problems that require immediate attention, and the issue of light pollution somehow gets neglected. But this could only happen until the public does not know about the real effects of light pollution, how it affects us, the ecosystem, and how it affects us so many ways that no one can only imagine. Light pollution is a slow degenerating agent. It will hollow the ecosystem out stealthily and we won't be able to do anything about it. Hence, outreach and education has to jump to rescue us all. Connecting, explaining, and discussing this issue with the general public is the most important thing to turn a movement into a revolution. These are the rigid pillars over which a huge change will be brought or at least initiated. I personally work on outreach and education section of Dark Sky Advocacy. It's been almost 4 years to me working on spreading awareness about light pollution, first through offline events or seminars to the local audience, then to all of the world through social media. Years ago, I founded an organization, Save Our Stars Initiative, and under its umbrella, we have been able to reach out to thousands of people when we have interacted, explained, and helped them understand the problem of light pollution. A brief intro about Save Our Stars Initiative. Save Our Stars is a non-profit organization working towards spreading awareness about light pollution and dark sky advocacy by ingenious and unconventional methods. We try our utmost best to reach out and educate as much of the general public as we can. We aim to build a huge fraternity in India and furthermore than in the world, wherein people from all aspects of society are represented and they come together to work towards a shared goal of protecting the night, the only shared heritage or the shared culture that we have. Our team aims for diversity and uniqueness to gain a shared yet distinct perspective for paving a path to our vision. Moreover, Save Our Stars is a youth-run organization and it's wholly run by the youth, focuses on training the youth in dark sky advocacy and as well as all the other necessary skills required to bring about a revolution. And most importantly, it brings the enthusiasts from all over the world together to revisit and preserve the only heritage we all cherish and will always do, a dark and starry night. The SOS initiative began with short seminars and night sky observations for friends and family, which moved forward to hosting sensitization programs in different schools and educational institutions. The response from the students made us realize that our target audience shall remain the youth, but it's the perfect time for embarking something in their life paths. It's the time when things leave an impact. And supposedly, if we are able to inspire or aware even 1 out of 100 students, we add one more member to our global team of enthusiasts fighting to protect the night sky. And who knows that one single realization that a problem like light pollution even exists may lead him or her to lead an awareness program or maybe even come up with better and efficient solutions to battle this problem in the near future. I know that it did for me. Now let's talk about the work that we do in Save Our Stars and let us explore all the ingenious ways that I stated before. Public outreach seminars. According to our aim, educating the public must be the first step towards building and leading a revolution. We focus on conveying the message through open or individual seminars. For every presentation, our themes and topics change to appeal creatively and distinctively. We rarely do proper factual seminars. We focus on making them interactive and appealing to the audience. Because conveying this issue to the youth, as I already said, our target is the youth. Conveying this issue to the youth requires to bend the issue to make them understand in their own way, in their own Gen Z way. For example, this was an event we did in 2019 during the World Space Week. It was a combined public seminar plus an evening sky observation. I'll circle back to the evening sky observation in its respective section. We had an audience of around 62 students from age ranges 10 to 16 years. We took up the basics of light pollution and dark sky advocacy along with a race quiz to keep the spark alive. It was followed by a few documentaries on light pollution. The response we got was really great, and some of them even volunteered to join our movement. Now, coming back to the night sky observation or evening sky observation, one of the main reasons of the low awareness of light pollution is the limited access to the beauty that is the night sky. So we host public evening or night sky observations to take the audiences on a journey to the stars and hence making them realize what they have been missing out on. And will always be the best way for the people of all age groups about this problem. And we make them compare the differences, like because wherever we are mostly set up in educational institutions. So around that, the lighting they do light that is not dark sky friendly. So we make them compare when they look through the telescope and when they look without the telescope, and we tell them that it's because of the light. So I mean, the school students really get intrigued to watch different planets and craters of the moon so clearly from a bottle line sky with a telescope, but they can't see even a star or even a nudge of the planet without the telescope. Next, we have our educational exhibits. The SOS initiative has represented the movement against light pollution at some prestigious educational fairs and witnessed a great response from the audience who got introduced to this problem and its solutions. We intend to continue our exhibits at numerous other fairs in the coming future. These photos are from our team representing Seva Shas at a really huge educational festival where we entertained almost 10,000 people in the time span of 3 days. In festivals like these, it's all about creative efforts to attract people first. We had to put in a lot of unique things to call out to people, just like photo booths with props. We had arranged this AI robot over there to interact with people about light pollution so that they could take a photograph with him and interact with him and know more about light pollution. We also arranged some merchandise and brochures for people to take them with. Now, these were the things we did in person before the pandemic, and but after the lockdown and the pandemic, we had to switch to online mode, and that actually really helped us gain a global audience. First of all, I'd like to talk about the educational webinars and events. Online events are the best way to reach out to an audience on an international level, bring together dark sky enthusiasts from all over the globe. Our webinars are hosted individually or in collaboration with an educational institution or group on various intriguing sub-themes of dark sky advocacy. We even do different types of events like quizzes, movie nights, and many other these kind of creative events to call out to people and then explain to them what the problem of light pollution while having some fun with them. The latest program that we have was the Fallen Stars program. The Fallen Stars program is a youth advocacy internship which was formulated to inculcate important traits like public speaking, activism, outreach, research, and communication in the youth culture. We expected to achieve all these goals while expanding and embracing the community to battle the problem of light pollution. Under this program, we had around 18 selected interns out of 65 applicants that helped contribute to the movement through exploring their comfort zones and even stepping out of it for more exposure. We had an age range of 7th graders to working professionals, and the best part remains that they all worked as a team. We recruited content writers, creative writers, graphic designers, event managers, and whatnot. The program turned out to be of great success, and everyone associated with it gained something from it. We launched this program with a vision to take a first step towards a dark sky conservation community in India. And we will be continuing with this program with the other versions of this programs in the near future too. Social media as a tool. Since we moved to an online mode, social media has been the most efficient way to reach out to the people of all background and places. We create the most unique content and try to appeal to the all age groups possible. There's not much to say in this portion, so I'll just let the content speak for itself. And since we are bound on time, I'll request you all to, go and check out Seva Stars on Instagram. And I'm sure that you'll really like the content. And I really wanted to play some reels or videos for you here, but since we are also streaming live on Facebook, we don't have license for everything. So, and that was also a problem. So I really hope that you all will go to our Instagram page and see our content. This is just the beginning to a huge community aimed to bring about a revolution in how we perceive the dark and starry skies and how we can save them. I'd like to end my part with a short line that in this era of light pollution and sky glow, you must try to be one starry night. It's the stars who guide the wanderers, not a yellow bulb. And also, this is our new logo. I launched it in 2 months ago in a big event that my organization hosted, and now I am relaunching it again because we didn't get to the chance to launch it officially. So yeah, that was my part. Now Abhishek can continue with his work in his field.
Thank you, Deep, for that wonderful information. So, as important it is to do awareness on a local as well as an international platform, it is also important to do awareness on the ground level. That's what I do. I am a member of the IDA and Deep's Seva Stars initiative. I do advocacy for dark skies on the ground level. I work with the various government departments in my city to enforce dark sky friendly lighting and policies. I work with them to bring the changes in light fixtures and patterns of my city, in which I recently had a huge success. I was able to convince my local authorities to dim the streetlights of my city, Nagpur, from 100% to 60% every night after 10 p.m. After that, as usual, what happens when you buy a new telescope or something related to astronomy happened with me. The clouds rolled in and stayed for a few weeks. During those cloudy nights, whenever I looked up at the night sky, I felt that the clouds were making fun of me. But then came the golden day when it finally cleared up, and to my shock, it made a huge difference. I chose to observe the Lagoon and Omega Nebula, and to my surprise, they were visible with my small 17 to 30 binoculars. It was amazing to see the number of stars visible to the naked eye after 10 p.m. These are the before and after images. You can't see the Milky Way, but it's still better than before. Recently, the Orion Nebula has started to come up early, and now I can take a look at it and I can tell that there's something like a haze near the star where the nebula is present. The way I approach the local authorities is by a few contacts. My father works with WHO, so he had previously interacted with officials of our local municipality. The NMC, that is the Nagpur Municipal Corporation. With my father's help, I approached one of the concerned person about the problem of light pollution and explained him how it affects the living things. After a few minutes of conversation, I got a positive feedback. They told me that they have the facility to dim the lights if they want. After 2 days of meeting, they called me and told me that they will soon start dimming the lights of the street lights in my locality. It didn't make a huge difference at first, but looking at the streetlights getting dim felt very good. Soon, I got to know that the streetlights are going to be dimmed throughout the city. After hearing this, I jumped on the place. I felt very happy. But as I said, due to clouds, I was not able to see how big difference it really made for quite a while. However, the night I was able to observe the difference, I was astonished and it felt like a very great achievement. Thanks to IDA, when I shared this achievement of mine with them, they awarded me with the Star of the Month title and highlighted my achievement on the website and all the social media platforms. All this led to one big thing. I'm feeling very excited and proud to announce for the first time in public. I used to visit a dark sky site near my city which inhabited exceptional night sky quality. The site is protected buffer area of a massive forest. For the past whole year, I have been working with the forest department of my state to prepare an application for the site to be recognized as an international dark sky place by the International Dark Sky Association. We are almost at the end of our application, which if approved by the IDA will result in our site becoming the first ever dark sky place in all of India. The site I have been referring is known as Sillari, which is a tiger safari gate in Pench Tiger Reserve, Maharashtra. A short intro about Pench. Pench Tiger Reserve or Pench National Park is a premier tiger reserve of India and the first one to straddle across two states, that is Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra. It is the same forest area portrayed in the famous storybook, The Jungle Book by Rudyard Kipling. Here are some of the images that I captured from there. Start, please. This is the moment where we all connect, looking at the night sky above us and feeling how wonderful it is and what other people are missing upon. This is the winter Milky Way from Solar.
Thank you, everyone. That was the end of our presentation. I really hope that you understood our title, that why we are sailing through a change and we are sailing to a change. And again, I'd like to thank IDA for inviting us here, and everyone have happy stargazing, and let's save the dark skies.
Lovely, thank you both very much. We did, as some people may have noticed, we had a few sound issues there with Abhishek's last talk, so apologies for that, but hopefully if there's anything that wasn't clear, we can discuss that in the Q&A afterwards. So thank you both for another insightful presentation. It did prompt lots of discussion in the experiences that people have had in the chat box. And also we'd encourage you to follow the guys on Instagram. So the Instagram handle is in the chat box if you want to do that now. Thank you once again. So we are moving on to our third speaker of today's session, this morning's session. We move on to Samyukta Manikumar. Samyukta is an amateur astronomer from Nairobi. She is currently a member of the IDA International Committee. She works on designing experiences to help people connect with darkness in the night sky, and hopes to harness the dark skies to promote sustainability, nature conservation, and heritage preservation. Samyukta will present her lessons learned from introducing an astrotourism project pilot project, and on how to talk about light pollution in a way that makes people care. So her presentation is called Astrotourism and Reframing Perceptions of Darkness. And with that, I'd like to welcome Samyukta Manikumar.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, I was muted. It's going to be a tough act to follow the last two presentations, but I'm going to do my best. My name is Samyukta. I'm from Kenya, and I work on designing experiences to help people protect the night sky. And I'm also an amateur astronomer. I'm very grateful to be here today to talk about astrotourism in Kenya, specifically about the implementation of an astrotourism pilot project in Kenya, and how astrotourism relates to dark sky advocacy. So the approach to dark sky advocacy is pretty clear in the developed world. In places where there's a visible excess of light, the approach is generally to highlight the problems associated with improper and excessive artificial lighting. But in Africa, especially in a place like Kenya, light pollution is still far from this detrimental kind of excess. Most parts of Kenya are already very dark from a lack of infrastructure. And in places like this, darkness indicates a lack of development, a lack of progress. And artificial light, because of the infrastructural symbols that come with it, like tall buildings and streetlights, is seen as something to aspire to. So in a place like this, how do we get people to care about light pollution? And how do we get them engaged to protect the dark? I'm going to segue a little and talk about the pilot project. So a group of us Kenyans received funding to start an astronomy for development project, pilot project in Kenya. 10 of us were part of the third Kenyan cohort of the Development in Africa with Radio Astronomy, or DARA program. So we were funded by DARA through the IAU Office of Astronomy for Development to come up with a project that used astronomy to target some of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We called ourselves and our project Sayari, which is the Swahili word for planet. And we started thinking about how we could use astronomy to tackle Kenya's unique problems. So a few key things we noted about Kenya were that the economy relies heavily on tourism, especially on nature tourism and cultural tourism. But in spite of Kenya's economic success, at least before the pandemic, there are also some serious economic problems. We have very high rates of youth unemployment, about 15%, and really high rural poverty rates, about 36%, which is improving slowly, but there's definitely room for a lot of change. So we started wondering, is there a way to solve these problems in Kenya using astronomy, and more importantly, using things that Kenya already has? Kenya has abundant dark skies, especially in more rural areas. It's really only the cities that are starting to show signs of light pollution for now. It's also mostly at a high altitude with really dry air, which means pretty beautiful night skies. And we're also located on the equator, which gives Kenya access to northern and southern skies throughout the year. So when I say these things, for many of you, the first word that comes to your mind now is probably astrotourism, which is exactly what we thought. The astrotourism industry is still very new to Kenya. There are a few people offering astrotourism services, but there's still lots of potential to create new jobs by capitalizing on the features that I mentioned before, the dryness, the altitude, and relative darkness. And there also isn't the need for much additional infrastructural investment. So we looked at the role that safari guides play in Kenya. Safari is the Swahili word for travel. I'm not talking about the browser. And safari guides are the tour guides that take people through game reserves and through protected areas, and they give them knowledge about the landscape. So the safari guides are points of contact, essentially the mediators between the visiting tourists and the cultural and natural landscape of Kenya. And we thought that if we as Sayari offer astrotourism services ourselves, we won't reach as many people as we would if we trained these safari guides, these points of contact. So the idea was to give the guides astronomy skills to open up this astrotourism segment of the tourism market. And these skills would also fit in well with their current skills and what they already do. What they do is they help people to understand the nature and the culture of Kenya. But the night sky, as we know, is also a natural asset. It houses an entire nocturnal environment and ecosystem. And there's also a rich cultural relationship of different Kenyan tribes to objects in the night sky. Phase 1 of our pilot project happened in 2018 and 2019. We trained 10 safari guides at 2 camps over 2 weeks in the Masai Mara Game Reserve in Kenya. So on the left here, you can see the Masai guide being trained to use a mobile sky map application. The Masai are just one of the 44 tribes in Kenya. They're probably the most famous. But our training basically consisted of theory lessons during the day. And we had practical sessions at night where the guides could kind of integrate and try out what they learned during the day. We designed the curriculum around core skills in astronomy. So these skills were in astronomy theory, things like cosmic distances, the basic science behind different objects and object classifications. We also gave the guides skills in a practical observational astronomy. So the basics of celestial mechanics from the equator, because we're on the equator, and how to predict the movement of different things in the sky to know where things rise and set and the path that they take through the sky. That's important knowledge for observing. We also gave each lodge a 6-inch reflector telescope to use, and we taught them some telescope basics as well so that they could assemble and use the telescopes by themselves after the training. Aside from the course astronomy skills, we also gave guides presentations about ethnoastronomy from different tribes in Kenya and the rest of Africa. Like I mentioned before, Kenya has a rich cultural relationship with the night sky. And many tribes use objects in the night sky for timing rituals and predicting events, but also for more practical, down-to-earth purposes like timing harvests and predicting the start and end of the rainy season. We also introduced dark sky conservation and some reasons why the night needs to be protected. Dark sky conservation is pretty new to Kenya because, as I mentioned, the situation in most parts of Kenya is not really at a problematic level. But regardless, we went through some basic information with the guides about the general need for darkness and the problems of artificial lighting. So the lessons from this phase of Sayari were twofold. Firstly, for a new industry and the hopes of reaching a new market, our training had maybe a bit too much information. Safari guides have different education levels, especially of physics and natural science. And it's very hard to teach all of basic theoretical astronomy in 2 weeks to people without a solid science base. It's much harder when it's also combined with all the other skills that we were trying to teach them. But the second, more optimistic lesson was that there was a lot of interest in knowledge that was more local, like light pollution and ethnoastronomy. Guides were very interested in things that had a direct relationship to them, things involving culture, and even how the absence of the dark impacts them and their own biology. We actually found that in many cases it was less like a training and more of a dialogue where we were, when we were discussing these topics, we were actually like learning anecdotes and cultural stories from them as we were teaching them. So armed with these lessons, we attempted phase 2 of the training. This was post-pandemic. We trained one guide, Peter Kamau, who was interested in upskilling post-pandemic and also interested in sustainable tourism and ecotourism. Peter also runs his own travel company. So for Peter's training was completely online. We removed all the astronomy theory and telescope content and decided to focus on expanding ethnoastronomy and really focusing the light pollution content on the ecological impacts of light pollution. We realized that safari guides have a very delicate understanding of the ecosystems and the interactions of different organisms. And they were in a good position to comprehend how it affects ecology. And we also felt that this curriculum was a much better balance of the material compared to the first training, and definitely much more doable in 2 weeks. So Peter's astro guiding skills and his confidence improved measurably after this training. He was able to keep up with the material, and he also confirmed to us what we'd learned before, that the most interesting topics to guides and to tourists are the locally relevant components, the ethnoastronomy and the ecological impacts of light pollution. Peter hasn't been able to test out his skills on guests yet, since the tourism sector has been pretty badly hit by the pandemic in Kenya, and it's working hard to bounce back. But these trainings have taught us that there's definitely a gap in the market that we hope to address in the future. So some future plans for Sayari include refresher trainings for the camps that we previously trained. And we're also looking at packaging the course so it can be taught at hospitality schools and guiding associations in Kenya. This experience has also highlighted the lack of light pollution research in Kenya. This is something I'm personally working to remedy. I created this database with existing research on the effects of light pollution on species studied elsewhere in the world that are also local to Kenya. It's just cross-referenced information, but my hope is that it will start a conversation and encourage some on-the-ground and direct local research of light pollution on ecosystems in Kenya. The database is still in early stages and it's being updated constantly, but you can access it at the link here. I'll pop it in the chat later as well. So through our work and through the Sayari pilot project, we discovered something that all the people fighting for the dark already know, but we realized that it's also true for Kenya, that darkness holds incredible potential for connection, for environmental preservation, heritage preservation, and for economic growth. But we also stumbled upon an interesting answer to the initial question. How do we get people to care about light pollution in Kenya? And the answer for us wasn't to talk about the problems of light, but to plant the seed for and to cultivate a relationship to the dark and a sensitivity to it through creating economic opportunity in darkness and also creating experiences of connection to heritage, to beauty, and to all. By making people sensitive to the dark and everything it has to give us, people will care for it and they will protect it. So perhaps this is something we can add to our collective advocacy toolbox to restore the natural night sky. We can try to create the conditions for people to connect to the dark, and maybe the rest will just fall into place. Thank you so much for making the time to listen to me. A special thank you to the IDA for this opportunity and to the entire Sayari team for making this happen.
Well, thank you, Samyukta, for a truly beautiful presentation and a really inspiring model for astrotourism in rural communities. Amazing work. So, folks, we are at the end of our 3 speaker sessions. Just to remind you again that we are taking questions and answers in the questions and answers box at the bottom of your screen. We do welcome your chat and your comments and your exchanges, but just to make sure the questions are in the right box and then we can get to them for you. So just for the rest of the session now, we're going to move on to our Q&A with all of the speakers, and we're going to look at your questions. We will run through that we have about 20 minutes approximately, and then after that we will be taking a break before the next engagement workshop sessions begin. So if perhaps I could invite the other speakers to join me with their cameras, and we can go into the Q&A box and just see what we've got in here. How many surprises. And thank you all guys again. Firstly, so I have a question that's we've used upvoting. So there's a question at the top of the list for Deep and Abhishek. It's an anonymous attendee who says, I live in the most light polluted city in India. What should my primary approach towards light pollution be? Raising awareness through interaction or reaching out to government officials? Could we have your thoughts on that, please?
Okay, so I have been asked this question many times, that which field of dark sky advocacy should people take when they're living in metropolitan cities? So as of my experience of working in India, and I have seen many other people working in India, first of all, yes, awareness, you can either choose both of them. It's according to your strengths. If you have a way of convincing people, that's different. If you have a way of convincing government officials, that's different. But yes, due to low awareness and due to low education about light pollution in India, when you consult or when you talk to government officials, you face some problems. So I'll suggest that you try to go into the awareness section first. You gain some experience in that. Then you move forward into the into talking to the government officials and bringing about the change. But as in Abhishek's case, he had some already he has some contacts. He had some he had contacts with some government officials. So the process was a little speed up. But if you try to go this in a whole traditional way, like you are sending out letters, you are going there, you're talking to them, it'll be a lot slow and you won't get the response you want. So my advice would be, first go into the awareness section, then move ahead to the government, because once you have the public support, then your word reaches to the government officials faster. So yeah, that's my answer to this.
Yeah. And I think that ties in with Samyukta's presentation as well. It's capturing something that people love, and then you have a voice to enable you to raise that with the officials, perhaps. I don't know. Thank you. Thanks for answering that. We will move on to the next question, which is for Samyukta. Regarding the training of guides, this is from Francis Rubin. What attempt was made at the starting point to elicit from the guides what knowledge they had about the night sky and their perceptions before the top-down intervention? So to meld the knowledges, maybe this was done before.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the mistakes we made in the first round of training was that we didn't assess this. We just assumed that all the guides would be starting at the same place with a high school level physics education and actually remembering that education. But this is something we fixed in the second round. With Peter, I mentioned that we left out all of the astronomy theory. That was because Peter had completed a different astronomy training, the Field Guide Association of South Africa astronomy training, which has a pretty bulky theory content. So, and future trainings, we're definitely going to make sure there's some kind of assessment, and the training will be adapted to different levels. But also, we're looking at transitioning the training into less of astronomy theory or science theory, and much more of local knowledge like light pollution and ethnoastronomy, for which you don't need much of a background. It's mostly storytelling. And I think that's the kind of information that's more interesting to both tourists and to the guides themselves, because the science is easy to look up, but the stories are what make a place special.
I've heard that a comment before about that it's sometimes better to train guides to become astronomy communicators than to train perhaps experienced astronomers to become guides. So there's that question there. So thanks for raising that, Francis. That's a great question. Actually, guys, do you have any further comments on that? Because it touches on your areas as well. Abhishek, perhaps.
Yeah, even when Samyukta said, I today discussed that point with my father. We discussed about how we can train the guides. Means in India, that my Dark Sky place being a tiger reserve, there lots of tourists come there to do tiger safari to get a sighting of tiger. So we just discussed that I think we should teach them some basics of astronomy and give them a small knowledge about what light pollution is, so that they can tell that to guest they host.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Great, we will move on to a question for Rayan. This is from Megan Eves, who herself does a huge amount of work on dark skies in London, so from the urban area. So she's asking how you've addressed questions about safety in a way that makes sense to the audience and reassures them. It's the single biggest blocker for London, and she has some answers, but would love to hear the perspectives from your city too. So that would be great to hear from you, Rayan. I know there's been some discussion on that point in the chat box, but if we could hear from Rayan, that would be great. Is he with? Yeah.
Okay, let me answer it from here. I am facing a little technical challenge right now. So when we talk about the safety, it's quite hard to understand that light pollution is also affecting your safety. And when we talk about this unconventional ideas, we need to have a brainstorming with like-minded people that how we can address this issue more likely, that they can connect this issue properly. For example, when we talk about some birds, how nocturnal birds get affected because of light pollution, it's easy to address. But when we talk about the safety, a lot of people think dark is actually more safe. But for that point, I think we need more little time to make this issue highlight through this unconventional approach.
Thank you. I mean, I think with cities especially, and perhaps Deep, I don't know if you, or Abhishek, you might want to comment on that too from the point of view of safeties. We regularly have this argument, so it's just hard to find the right message. I'm just going to read out a little comment from Friedel, who responded to that same question. He said that he works with the Crime and University of Brussels, who did research to conclude that lighting and crime has no connection or relation, whereas social control makes a difference and good lighting can help that. But in the first place, there must be enough social control on the street, and that is the most important part of the night. Any thoughts yourselves on that from the point of view of urban areas and safety?
Yes, for the safety, I think safety, when we talk about the safety, it's little critical to understand that how it is affecting. For example, from my perspective, when I started talking about this issue of light pollution, I try to convince through their problem. For example, like how it is affecting their health. That is, people actually care more about it. When we talk about the safety, people do not actually resonate with other aspects. In just like in urban areas, people think that light is more safer for them, but it's not. As we know already, that light pollution is affecting a lot of things. It's not even safe. That it can impact or affect your your safety as well. I think this has to be addressed more in a more appropriate manner, like how we can make this conversation begin with this topic of safe light pollution is also affecting their safety.
Yeah, and I think that's where, the opening is there for the lighting industry to come in and, perhaps to help us a little bit more with that. Francis has responded as well in the chat to also concur that it's sorry, I've just lost it there, a big problem to help people in urban areas accept that streets should not be highly lighted. And there, we've all discussed this, that there is that connotation that light equals good and therefore dark must equal the opposite. So that's a huge challenge when you're especially in urban areas, and the concept of safety is so easy to present a lighting fixture as a solution. So it's, I think, a multidisciplinary response. And Rayan, I just noticed you popped your hand up there. So do you want to respond on that again? Sorry.
Yes, definitely. When I talk about this topic of light pollution, which is an interdisciplinary topic, I think we should think in more collaborative way, like why it is important for everyone, not just for astronomers. It is not only for it's a topic that we must address through different communities, through different age group, because dark sky is actually for all. And that is, people, when I started working on this, most of the people actually, they were thinking that, oh, you studied astronomy, so that's why you are just focusing on this topic, that you cannot see the stars, this is your problem. And they were actually just focusing on that, this is only your problem, this is not our problem. But yeah, I tried my best to make them understand that this is not my problem only, it is our problem. So it is important to address in a right way that it is a problem for everyone, because it's a pollution. Yes,
it is. And also, adopting what we want to protect might be the trigger point for that. And just a comment there from Betty Meyer, she's absolutely right. More light does not equal more safe. Better lighting equals more safe. So if that's the message we can in part, then that might help us all. And again, bringing the lighting industry to help us with better light design, I think might be the way forward in urban areas. Okay, so we might move on to another question. Thank you guys for raising those. Always a good debate on that. I will skip down to our next. Yeah, a question for Deep and Abhishek. How can we initiate more dark sky places in India? And how can we convince local authorities?
Okay, so in India, I'll tell my approach, what I did. First, I identified a site. It's the site which I did in Chillari. I used to go there and I just felt that this place is a really good place and it should be on a world level. People should know. Even in India, there's not a lot of awareness and there are not many sites left where you can take a look at a very clear and starry night sky. So then first I decided that this should be the site. Then I approached the concerned authorities. In my case, it was the forest department. So then I told forest departments all the benefits of getting their place designated as a dark sky. As our place is a tiger reserve, there are lots and lots of animals, and for thousands of years, animals have evolved to the cycle of day and night. So artificial lights are kind of disrupting their life cycle. So through that approach, I went forward and I contacted all the officials. I explained them. I gave presentations and seminars. After around 3 months, I got a confirmation that okay, then we can apply for a dark sky sanctuary. So it was my approach. You can look for these best things are tiger reserves, I guess. There are lots and lots of tiger reserves in India, and almost everyone has a very good night sky quality because there are no artificial lights inside the forest. So I suggest you try to go to forest and contact the officials there.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not always that easy to get in touch with the right officials, but no, fair play to you for getting that far. That's it's a big challenge for all of us to get the right people who make those decisions. Thanks, Abhishek. We are going to move to Astrotourism now. Question for Samyukta. And this is from Henrik Sandgren, who asks, how aware would you say that the tourists are of the fact that a dark sky is something we Westerners could well have if only we did things a little bit differently? And is it something that you might tell them? He goes on to say, in contrast, for example, wildlife, we really shouldn't have to travel halfway across the globe to experience the night. Well, we always also experience some nice places by doing that. But what do you think, Samyukta?
Thank you for your question. We haven't actually tried to communicate that to the tourists. I think most people who come to, well, we communicate to the guides and the guides communicate it to the tourists. But yeah, it's tough to answer because I think most people who come to Kenya come for a kind of escape. Like they know that it's not possible to recreate this world of like wildlife and being so close to nature back in the West. But and I guess maybe they contextualize the night sky as part of that. Like you can't have this sky and this ground. But that is something that maybe we could look into communicating. We also do talk to the guides about good lighting practices and how to preserve the darkness. And I think the guides decide what is useful to communicate to people and what people are interested in. But if they choose to communicate that to the guests, then maybe there's hope. But we could probably encourage that in future trainings. That's a good suggestion. Okay,
great. And you're probably doing it subconsciously anyway, because when those visitors are returning home, I'm sure it's something that stays with them as the thought of what they're missing out on, and maybe they could do something more locally, even if it's not a direct message at the moment. Thank you for that. There's another question for you, just saying, are you looking for more contributions to your database from around the world?
Definitely. If this species that have been studied are also local to Kenya, then absolutely, or East Africa too. I'd be happy to accept any contributions.
Great. Okay, thank you. There's quite a few questions for you. I'm just going to skip down. I'll come back to you in a second, Samyukta. Let's just have I think this is a general question, Anna Levin. Hi, Anna. She's asking, how can we marry engagement and enthusiasm and connection to the night sky through advocacy and art with the need to engage and influence government policy in terms of street lighting and external light quality so that people can get enough darkness to make that connection? I don't know if anyone would like to, maybe Deep, would you look with your experience in poetry, would you like to tackle that?
Yeah, actually, I read that question. I was going to answer. I was actually typing the answer.
Okay.
So, according to me, in this case also, that we see marrying advocacy to proper concrete work in dark in this field, it's a little difficult. But as I already said before, that outreach is the first step, are the first pillars towards building a better and a darker sky. So once we are done with the outreach, then we can, move ahead into approaching the further authorities. So in my opinion, that yeah, actually, I was still trying to understand the question properly, but still, in my opinion, that when we are using art to express ourselves to this theme of dark skies, that it's already embedded into ourselves, and it's already represented in the arts through in different types of arts through ages. So when we are representing this thing in art and then moving ahead towards building a concrete dark sky, then this kind of helps when we are making our statement.
Okay, thank you. That's good. I'm just going to move that one out. We had another question. Sorry, they're coming in so quickly. I'm just trying to make sure we don't duplicate on any. A question for Rayan. Do you have any advice to fellow science communicators on how to start using visual arts / fashion as a means to deliver critical scientific topics on light pollution, climate change, etc., to disengaged people? So I know Rayan was trying to type an answer there, but if your sound is okay, it would be great to hear you.
Yes. Well, for this, when we talk about art, music, entertainment, engage them in a different way. So for that, if you are a science communicator, I think you need to have a complete understanding of what light pollution is doing to the environment. You should have a confidence enough to answer all these questions because you are communicating with a lot of people from different background, different perspective, different ideas. So when you are talking about this kind of topic through art, through entertainment, or through poetry, I think the best way is to analyze why it is so much important and why it is affecting them. Not just, for example, when I started and I realized as a communicator with the kids, why they can't see the stars for a kid. For example, I had collaboration with one poet and one artist, one doctor. So connect with them, with their topic is really important. Why they want to listen to you, that is important. What I figured out, you need to, for example, if I talk to a mathematician or mathematics teacher, so I talk about the energy, how energy saving, what is the equation of energy saving. So this is the way I try to communicate, that they get engaged with this topic rather than I only talk about my problem, about the issue that, okay, that it is only related to me, but it is actually related to them as well. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to bring in a comment I've seen in the chat box from Ruskin Hartley. Thanks, Ruskin. He's just saying that if anyone's interested in scientific literature, so going back to the database, and you'd like to come to Chris Kyber's workshop, which is right after this, there is a huge amount of information that's going to be discussed and made available there to you. So don't go anywhere after this session. So back to the Q&As, a question from Tuka, which he's throwing out really to all panelists, but I suppose primarily to Samyukta. He asks, Kenyan ethnoastronomy sounds interesting. Is there some place or books that I could read on the subject?
Sure. So a lot of the research was just a lot of Googling and a lot of digging out really obscure papers. But there is one really good book by the anthropologist Rayan Khan. It's called Safari to the Stars. And she goes really in depth into Samburu ethnoastronomy. The Samburu are another one of the Kenyan tribes. As far as I know, that's the most well-documented Kenyan ethnoastronomy. But also if you look up Professor Paul Baki, I should probably add these notes in the chat.
That'd be great.
Yeah, Professor Paul Baki has written some papers on Luo ethnoastronomy. There's just little bits of everything, but I'd be happy to send you some links. I'll just drop my email address in there as well, and you can email me and we can chat.
That's brilliant, thank you. We have another few questions for you on astrotourism as well. Just while you are there. Sorry. Are you involving children and youngsters in the program, Samyukta?
So
I don't
far,
know from the guide's point of view, I'm not sure. But...
Yeah, if there are kids visiting, then the guides do talk to them about light pollution and ethnoastronomy and basically the sky. But we're also hoping that the guides on their own, we encourage them to do outreach in their local communities and local schools around the area. We haven't been able to follow up on that so well, but hopefully some kids have been reached by the program.
You've done so much already. That's great. Well, folks, what we might do is we've got still a lot of questions in there, but I might just go around and ask each of the panelists for perhaps one imparting message that they'd like to leave this session with. I think with the questions that we've got coming out in, if you have a little think about one message that you'd like to give at the end of this session, and I will just go through the questions one more time and see if we can pull out one more question for each of you before we go, and then I think we might leave it there. So I'm just going to close that one. We have a comment here from Chris Stewart on the fear. So I think this is more than the comment than a question, but I will read it anyway. There's two major factors that drive or mitigate light pollution in South Africa, and I dare say much of the world. Fear for personal security is a huge driver, especially in high crime rate areas. Unfortunately, trying to convince people that bad lighting reduces safety due to glare is seldom possible, in part due to marketeers pushing their products, and greatly due to ignorance on the part of companies in the security industry. Economics, I'm just going to skip through this, which incorrectly lead one to conclude that a country with a shortage of electricity, less lighting would be better. Unfortunately, the political connected push lighting solutions on municipalities maximize personal profits. None of these players are interested in correcting the situation. Well, I think we might leave that as a comment. No, I take your point, Chris, and thank you for making that. I think it's just one challenge that we're all going to have to keep on, is working with as many partners as we can, and there are very good people in the lighting industry willing to work with us, so let's not forget that too. Okay, we have a comment from Tarun, who's saying, I have good knowledge of observational astronomy and physics, and also a telescope, and recently I started learning astrophotography. What guidance would you provide me for further? So I think we can put that to Abhishek, please.
Okay, photography. See, the best thing you can do is you should start with landscape astrophotography. That is what personally I did. That is how you will feel the most connected to this hobby. First, you should visit a very dark sky place where you can see the Milky Way, you photograph it. And then if you develop more and more means passion towards this hobby, then you can go towards serious deep sky photography.
Okay, thank you. Samyukta, one for you. Are you familiar with anyone in Kenya working with sea turtle conservation? This is from Cesar San Miguel. With sea turtle conservation, and also familiar with light pollution issues around sea turtles.
Yeah, I haven't actually directly reached out to anyone working in sea turtle conservation, but I know there are some marine conservancies along the coast. And I plan to reach out to them because I actually, in the research for the database, I found 2 species of sea turtles that are local to Kenya and that are pretty badly affected by lighting, which I'm sure that the people living on the coast are not aware of.
Okay.
So I plan to reach out to them. But if you know anyone, please send me an email. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Here's one for us, I guess, for Save Our Stars, from Terra Celeste asks, favorite educational activity for public engagement for maybe targeted towards kids and youth. So maybe Deep or Abhishek, what would you?
Yeah, I'd like to answer that. The activities that I prefer for middle-aged students is that there are 3 activities. First of all, a space quiz or an astronomy quiz always intrigues them, because they are in that age where talking about anything about space always intrigues them, and you put a prize at the end, you put a certificate at the end, and they'll do their best to answer those questions. And after that, they'll be so hooked to our seminar that when we talk about light pollution, they'll be listening to that. The next thing is next things are the drawing and painting contests. Kids are filled with art, and we already established that this is the darkness and starry nights are the things that are always related to art and different types of modes of expressing themselves. Then in the last, there are movies or documentaries about light pollution. Not entirely about light pollution, but any movie related to space that can be pause in between, start with a documentary on light pollution. They will listen to it because they have to finish the other part of the movie.
The activity, yeah, great. Okay, that's a good idea. Thank you. And last question, then I'll put to perhaps Rayan. To increase knowledge and awareness, we have to increase curiosity. One way is to organize public events. What do you think about actions like Earth Night as public events for?
Okay. The public events that I organize or that I arrange is actually with a general public, the random group of people talking about the light pollution, wearing this costume in a public space. Like I went to a public space, as well as I went to a kids auditorium where I was wearing this costume. People start thinking, and initially they were curious to know why I'm wearing this costume. And gradually, slowly, they realized that they were calling me an alien because the principal of that school introduced me as an alien. So alien is on ground, and gradually, slowly, at the end of the topic, at the end of the session, they realized I'm not the alien, but they are the alien because they are engaged with all these artificial lights. And the reality is the dark sky was already there. And we created this artificial light, and they came to a point and realized that we are actually living in a wrong world somehow. And that's how I engage. And when we talk about general public, they get really excited to see such kind of body gesture or whatever, why this person is wearing costume, and they want to listen and what is the message behind why this person is so crazy about this topic. Because when I started talking about this issue of light pollution in Karachi, everyone's like, do you even realize where are you talking about this issue, where we have so many other issues like traffic pollution and so many other issues are there. And light pollution, people actually call it city of lights, and it's beautiful. So how can you address this? Maybe you are going too crazy. Maybe you're out of this world. Maybe you should move out to somewhere else. And this method worked very well, even from media channels. And as I'm working with the artist, so fashion media industry is really excited to know more about space somehow, about astronomy now, and they want to create some jewelry, fashion, art pieces connected with stars, connected with some space object or celestial objects. So I think this method is working for those audience who don't want to have all these technical knowledge to grasp or to understand. So this is the way I'm doing it.
Okay, thank you. I do look forward to maybe attending one of your public engagement sessions one day. They sound really fun. Okay, folks, I think we're out of time for questions now. I would kindly ask the panelists perhaps to have a look through, and if you could respond to any that are remaining unanswered, that would be great. Otherwise, perhaps to pop your email address in, if you don't mind people contacting you with further questions, I think that would be helpful. And then just to close this session, if I could do a one comment, a very short comment, takeaway message that you would like people to have from each of your presentations. So just a very short point, and I'll go to Samyukta first, then Abhishek, then Deep, and then Rayan. So yeah, great.
Thank you. I think my message would be that we're trying to, by encouraging people to preserve the nights in a way, we're challenging the direction of development that people anticipate. And so, and I guess the current capitalistic framework, we have to think about darkness not only as like a physical necessity or a biological necessity, but how we can economically incentivize it and sort of redefine development in the direction where darkness has a role to play. That's my comment. Thank you.
I like that. Darkness has a role to play. Thank you. Abhishek, could we hear from you, please?
Yeah, my message to everyone would be that you should encourage people to come to Dark Sky place and look at the beauty of the night sky. As we all know that there are not many places left where you can look at a very nice, clear, starry sky. So bringing people to a dark sky will make them realize that they need to do something to preserve this kind of place, and even do some changes at their native place in cities so that they can get a view of this night sky. So I encourage everyone to do more and more advocacy, as we all are already doing, and promote dark sky places.
Okay, give people the opportunity to experience it firsthand, I think is what you're saying. Thank you. Deep, could we hear from you, please?
Yeah, I'd like to speak a few lines from apart from one of my poems on darkness.
Okay.
They say, stare too long into the abyss, and the abyss stares back. It's not the abyss, but the light. We don't fear the dark, but the light in it. You embrace the dark and let it fill your soul. Darkness and us are related, for love, for life, and the stars to guide the wanderer in you. Because in the end, we are made of them, they are made of us, and it's these cosmic emotions that bind us together as a whole, as a universe. Thank you.
That is beautiful. Thank you. Very poignant. Thank you. And lastly, Rayan, just one short comment. Yeah.
Okay. So if you have passion to do something, or if you have passion to protect the night sky, even if you live in the city of light, you can still protect the night sky, I feel.
So regardless of where you are, urban or rural, you can do something about it. So that's very, if I dare use the phrase, enlightening from all of you. Thank you very much for all of your contributions today, and thanks to the IDA for organising this. We are going to take a break now, and the next session, the engagement session workshops, will be at 11:45. Please check your attendee package for the link. It will be a different link to move on to. And I'm sorry we didn't get to all of the questions, but I hope you understand. We will communicate as best we can. Okay, for now, I'll just say thanks again, folks, and look forward to seeing you another time.